Welcome to episode 4 of the Farm Urban Social Value Leaders and Innovators podcast. So today we have the amazing Sara Lawton, Liverpool-based socially driven organisation CEO, founder of Rise Construction Framework.
Yeah, that's right.
So welcome to the farm. You've been before, hey?
I've been before. I had a tour of the farm, which was great because I'd heard of Farm Urban, but never really seen how you grow things and how great it is. Really, it was fascinating.
Yeah. We grow lots of things and not just lettuce.
No.
People as well. Yeah. We've actually got a project at the moment growing coffee.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in the back, but that's another story altogether. But welcome to the farm.
Thanks.
Again. It's lovely to see you. So I first met you, we've just seen Seb, our development manager, and he came across you one day when we were in the Baltic Quarter and seeing the plaque for Rise on the wall. I was like, oh, who are they? And when we looked, it was you, and seeing the amazing work that you were doing. And then obviously we've had some conversations since, and yeah, I got a lovely invite to see you get the King's Leadership Award from the Lord Lieutenant, which was amazing.
Yeah.
So it's a real privilege to have you here. You're someone for me, when I see someone who's a leader, like really pushing the boundaries of what's possible, but with a real, not just a heart, but you're a real visionary, like in the way that you go about, like I don't want to say your work, but I'm going to call it your service.
Yeah.
I feel it's more appropriate for me to say that. But like I want to start by just opening things up and tell us about like Sara Lawton, like who are you, where you come from, and how do you find yourself where you are today?
Okay, so I'm from up the road in Toxteth.
Ah, you're Tucky girl.
Yeah, born and bred in Toxteth. We lived in Pexner Street. It was called just off Northumberland Street, and I had such a happy childhood. We basically, none of us had anything. When you're poor, you don't realise you're poor because you're all in the same boat. But one thing I do remember from that time of my life was we lived in a housing that was probably unfit to live in. We lived in my house growing up as a child was infested with cockroaches.
Oh, okay.
So you would like put the light on and you wouldn't go down the stairs until like the floor had cleared. And I think what that sort of led to was my mum became involved with another group of residents, and they formed the first ever housing cooperative in the UK.
No way.
Yeah.
Do you know what's really interesting? I only came across housing cooperatives. I think there was an article in the Post that was talking about it, and wow, that's like I was blown away.
Well, they created the first housing cooperative, which was the Weller Street Housing Cooperative.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
So we all moved down to our new estate, which is just further down off Park Road, and our old houses were actually demolished because they weren't fit for human habitation. But it was really interesting you mentioned the King's Award, because when I was about 9, the then Prince Charles came and opened our estate.
No.
So he came, he had a tea in a woman called Anne's house, and everyone was like all dressed up, you name it, everyone had the fur coats on, everyone had saved up for this visit for Prince Charles. And then when we won the King's Award, I was invited to Windsor Castle, and we had drinks with the now King Charles. And I just think when you look at what we do, and we talk about social value, social mobility, in a way, that's like quite the story, isn't it? Yeah. From living in housing conditions that were so poor, the houses had to be demolished, to being surrounded by people who actually took action to make a change that impacted on all the families who lived in those streets' lives, to having Prince Charles come and cut the blue ribbon for the first time ever. We had an indoor toilet, indoor toilet, indoor bath, and then to years later, standing in Windsor Castle and having a glass of champagne with the King.
Wow, what a story!
But it's okay. I haven't let it change me. Don't worry. I'm still grounded.
It's just for people who are listening, because people will be listening to this from all over the UK. So Toxteth at that time would be working class. The housing stock would have been Victorian terrace.
Yeah, Victorian terraced housing stock. We'd sort of gone through the riots.
Oh, early 1980s.
Early 1980s, and still sort of recall looking out the living room, the living room window, basically seeing just like the petrol bombs going. I remember one particular day, me and my mum would walk down to Carl Gardens, and my great uncle lived there. We used to take my roast dinner. And at that time, there was only me and my mum living together. My dad had sort of left when I was about 4. We walked down, gave my Uncle Johnny his roast, and we come up, and it was absolute chaos. Can still hear sort of the clanging of the riot shields, dump, dump, as they sort of went up Park Road, and sort of sheltering in a pub doorway, waiting really so that we could cross the road and try and get back to the house safely. And I think what happened to that for years was like the area just felt like the shops had gone. It felt quite bleak. People's businesses had been looted. And I know that we have protests, we have struggles, we had riots, but I think what stuck with me is people's businesses were looted. People like us who'd set up a little businesses, so many things were destroyed. And I suppose in some areas, those businesses never came back. So who I am, I'm somebody who's sort of just born in what I would say like a typical family. Mum and dad were together. They split up when I was about 4. Sort of lived in a really diverse community, which was great. And I think growing up, it never really sort of felt any difference, because I said to you at the beginning of the podcast, we were sort of all on the level playing field, but what we didn't realise, we were also sort of all on the bottom rung of the ladder. And it's as you get older and you go out of that area, and for me, when I mean the area, I actually mean like your networks, speaking to different people. For me, that was predominantly when I started work. I met different people from different areas, having different conversations, had perceptions challenged.
Yeah.
And I think that helps you grow as a person. But who you are, for me, that's never really left me. I'm still that kid sort of from Liverpool, like walking around on two tins of peas with string, because we, you talk about playing now, kids are moaning they haven't got a game. We used to have like, here's a tennis ball, put that in a pair of tights and hang it on the wall. But we had loads of fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, we really had so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be called ISB now, but we used to be playing in derelict buildings. You get the bricks.
ISB being antisocial behaviour.
Yeah, antisocial behaviour. You get the bricks and you build a little couch and you just all sit in the derelict building at the end of the street. That's who I am, and I think, I don't know, I just think, as my mum would say, done me no harm.
Did you no harm? So a question on that would then, how does that manifest in a more like practical, literal sense, like those roots? I mean, I could say, okay, I don't want to put my language on and say it keeps you grounded in some way, but how does that manifest for you? Does it keep you humble, or what can you sense of that?
I think it's made me very resilient.
Okay.
It's made me very resilient. I can be feisty. When the time's right, I'll always stand up for myself. But it also, I think, created this compassion, because actually we always helped each other out. So like, you might have to lend your friend's bike, or you'd share your sweets, or you do a message for somebody because you're playing in the streets and maybe they're too old to go to the shop. So I actually think you might call it a sense of community, but you cared about each other. And I don't think, we were insular, because people sort of pulled together. Even like, if people would make something to eat, we always took food to family. And I think it made me resilient, cared and compassionate. But at this age, I'm still very aware that there are families who struggle on a day-to-day basis, and there are families who still live in poor housing conditions, and there are families who it is a struggle. I think another complexity added into that is young people, when they're growing up, living in deprived communities, are now, I think, coerced, enticed into pathways that could lead down criminality. because actually, you know, if you think your only option is to drop a package off for someone, or, you know, to become involved in something, and that's the only way you think you're ever going to like be able to put food on the table, support your family, wear new trainees, then there's plenty of those opportunities in communities, because it sort of thrives. It thrives. It thrives, and people need alternatives and people need options. And I think what that is for me is I'm just very aware of that. And I think probably that drives what we do and why we do it. And I speak to people, various organisations, and they'll often tell me, you know, they're very lucky that they've not experienced that, or, you know, speak to sometimes people who are in leadership roles, as in like, you know, local authority or leadership roles, saying, I didn't realise that, you know, there are houses where children don't have beds to sleep on. Well, you should know that.
As a leader of an organisation, public organisation,
yeah, you should know. You should know what communities are facing. And there's no magic wand, but I think everything we do should be, if we can all do a little bit over time, collectively it gets better.
Yeah, it does. I want to go back to something as well where you talked about like that resilience. There's another word beginning with the letter R that feels like there's a pattern of that within you, which is resourcefulness.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
That's what come up in my mind, because you're able to, you're all sharing and looking after each other, but you know how that maybe shapes you as you're going up. You can do a lot with very little.
Yeah, you can do a lot with little, and we're, you know what, we're a prime example of that. We're a team of 4 at Rise.
So just on that point, tell us what Rise is.
Yeah, so Rise is, and there'll be lots of people who don't understand procurement. So procurement is extremely complex. So what we do is, we basically, in layperson's talk, we find builders, contractors who have got the skills, the qualifications, the capability, and the ability to build public sector buildings. That can be schools, hospitals, refurbishments, they can build roads. And what happens is, when the public sector want anything building, because it's taxpayers' money, in theory, we've all got a right to see if we can win that contract. So we operate a framework, and what that means is we tell everybody we're working with the public sector. All the builders across the country can apply. They send us tender documentations in, and then we shortlist the best. So we shortlist the ones who score the highest, and then the public sector can come and say, Sarah, we need a builder, and we'll say, here's Neil, you know, or here's Neil, and here's another, and here's another. And the public sector will select the builder, and we get paid for that service.
Like a commission, but you get like a cut.
We get paid for that service. It can take up to a year to build a framework, because within that we do all the vetting, the due diligence, the advertise, and it saves the public sector a lot of time and a lot of money. But also it's compliant, so it cuts out potential corruption, I suppose. So it makes sure that public sector money is spent in the right way, and it's not going in anybody's back pocket. What we then do, which is quite different in the market, is they'll pay us a fee. We take a proportion of that money, and then we set that money aside, and we build then community pots of money. We then look at the indices of mass deprivation, and wherever we're working, so we work, strangely enough, we work mostly outside of Liverpool.
Interesting.
Yeah, most of our work is Manchester, Lancashire. But then we will use our money to fund the third sector to deliver initiatives that impact on one of the 7 domains of deprivation. So we fund mental health services, we fund domestic violence services, we fund citizens advice at the moment, actually. So we're funding citizens advice services in hospital trusts and in homeless organisations.
Okay.
So we do all of that good work. In Liverpool, we did something different though. Yeah. Jeez. So in Liverpool, we created our own social mobility project, and that's called Thrive.
Yeah.
And we did that for a number of reasons. So the charitable sector can be quite volatile.
Generally.
There is a shortage of funding. There's and like every other industry, you have your good organisations and your organisations that aren't so good. I feel that as the Liverpool City region, we have so many. It's really hard to weed through like which is great, which isn't great. We made some investments that we were really happy with, some investments that we weren't so happy with, and then we had an accidental conversation,
as you do,
with support workers who look after care experienced young people, and they said we basically don't have anywhere to meet them. So the support workers are driving to McDonald's, Costa Coffees, where they can access Wi-Fi, get a drink, get on the phones, use the phones to look for jobs for young people or colleges. But they're in these really public places, and some of the young people's experiences can be, traumatic. The conversations can be sensitive. So we decided that we would build them a coffee shop. So we thought, well, we've got some money for Liverpool, let's build them a coffee shop. So we went to a housing organisation called the Regender Group, who worked with us in the past and really understands what we do and how we do it. And they had an empty commercial unit in the city centre, and they basically give us the keys and said, right, see what you can do. So we created this coffee shop called Thrive. It's between Dale Street and Victoria Street. It's not open to the public. So it's a dedicated safe space for care leavers. They come in, they can have tea, coffee, hot chocolate. We've got a barista. They get sat down. What would you like? Cold drinks. Then we have like some porridge and some crisp and some biscuits and get some refreshments there. So they come in and have those meetings. Then what we did was we reached out to a number of organisations across Liverpool City region. So Regender come in on a day and they do housing advice for them. We commission a service called First Person, and they do mental health wellbeing support for them. We have a range of employers come in to tell them who they are, what they do. It's little things like, you want to work on a building site, that's great. Can you drive? The work will predominantly be outside Liverpool. Are you all right getting up at 5 in the morning? Are you okay working outside in the rain? And it's just that like lived experience. And what we've created is this sort of careers hub that doesn't feel like a careers hub. That feels like a really good safe space and feels like it's their safe space.
Lovely.
And they can access services including DWP services. So
from the space. Yeah, wow.
So if they're 18 to 24, they can use Thrive as an alternative to the job centre. So the basically claim gets transferred to us. We'll also take new claims from care experienced young people who need to make a claim for universal credit.
Nice.
And we deal with all their benefit queries, and they'll come in and they can, from day one, get intensive wraparound support and the referrals into what they need. I think last year the team supported 160 young people from the furthest from the job market into employment. And they are care leavers, they're young offenders, they're young people who, have never been in employment before. So the team do a really good job.
It's remarkable. So Thrive sounds like it's thriving.
It is thriving. But they do things like, a lot of the young people, and I think people don't realise this, when they leave care, they're not always put in safe housing.
Well, where did they go?
So they'll be put in multiple occupations. So they're put in a block of flats with other care leavers.
Yeah.
They're then targeted by gangs for purposes for exploitation for criminal or sexual purposes. They're too scared to sleep. I always remember there was a young lad who came to us, and he'd been put in a flat, and the flat was lovely, and he came to us and he said, he was going back to when Kickstart was on. It was during the pandemic, and he said,
What's Kickstart?
It was an initiative by the government to help young people back into work in response to COVID-19.
Okay, so was this a national policy or a
national policy?
National, okay.
So we'd started as 6-month placement, and everyone was working from home. we were open as an essential service, and he said he'd wanted to work from our space. And the reason being was where he lived, there was a paedophile in the flat above him who was knocking on his flat every day, asking to be let in. And you just think, when they're 18, if they've not got a network for good, who do they turn to? So we've created this place which, you know, some of the young people, one girl's been in work for 2 years, she still comes in every Wednesday, touches base, because essentially they're an extended family now. She needs advice on bills. Also, when they go into work, who do they phone? You know, they've got no furniture, or they've got a washing machine, but they've never been showed how to switch it on. So Thrive is a really special place that does amazing things with employability, but also does all that other stuff as well.
Like wraparound, yeah.
The wraparound
the practical
support,
life day to day.
Yeah, referring the young people into specialists, because, you know, we've got a fantastic team, but we don't profess to be specialists in anything. And the reason that we wanted the coffee shop and to pull partners in is that there are specialists out there who do a fantastic job. We're not here to do that. We're here to connect the young people to employers and those services that exist.
Wow. Do you know what's sitting with me is like the fact that something like Thrive even has to exist.
Yeah.
That, you know, in a first world country, like there's conditions within communities that are and family units, in such a way that like these services are needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, we had a young lad in the winter who was sleeping in a derelict building. He was 18.
Yeah. Wow.
He was 18.
But amazing work that you're doing with Thrive. And then I want to bring it back to you though, because like, you know, that's a very specific thing. And I know it's like, maybe it's common sense for you, the way you see the world, that you'd seen that opportunity and thought, okay, we've got some resource, let's do it. But there's a lot of complexity in creating something like a Thrive. And okay, it's one thing to acknowledge, okay, well, there's something needed here, but something altogether different to think, okay, we can do this and let's do it.
Yeah.
So
it's because I'm a moaner.
Get him. What does that mean?
So basically, when I started, my first job was in DWP when I was 17.
I was going to come back to your first job, because I even got to even being in Rise, because I know you're in the fire service, but go on, you crack on.
I was 17, and I always remember, you know, like you start work and make friends, and I've still got some of those friends today. It's a long time afterwards. I always remember being in a team meeting. We had a team meeting on a Friday, and I always remember being like, oh, you know, this isn't right, that isn't right. And we had this district manager, his name was Brian Kersley, nice fella. And he basically said to me, well, you know, instead of moaning, why don't you do something about it? Why don't you get your head down, get yourself promoted, and be somebody who can make decisions?
Have a bit of influence, yeah.
And I thought,
what, like that?
What's he talking about? And he said, and more than that, I'm going to link you in with Viv. Viv was she was a manager there, she was fantastic. And she'll mentor you, and we'll channel some of that energy you've got.
Can I just touch on something there? Because like when we're talking about young people and some of the work around Thrive, because there's something I'm a real advocate of, is mentorship.
Yeah.
And the difference that mentorship at a certain stage in someone's life can make in them developing in a positive way.
Honestly. So like if I wanted to moan, I'd like, you know, could go to Viv if I needed help with the competency-based application forms. Ask her, you know, I don't understand what the question is. To be able to say to somebody, I know I'm doing this, I know I can do it, but I don't understand what the question is. And after somebody sit down and say, well, you do this, this is how you do it, and that's the outcome. And me thinking, is it that simple? Is, you know, have I been not overcomplicating things? But to have that person to go to, and then for you to say, actually, yeah, I actually do this all the time, was like, it was changing for me. I went on from going in as an administrative assistant to actually managing job centres and social securities. So I was like in my early 30s managing Kinglake House, which was just turned into a job centre. And it was a really difficult site. At the Kenny Riot Squad, like with paintball guns outside, there was a lot of women who, you know, were working of a night time, coming in the gyros are getting taken off them. There was a lot of things to sort out, and that was a journey, and that was a learning journey. And we took it from being behind screens to being open plan. It was one of the best things, because when people see you as somebody trying to help them, they appreciate that. Before that, I thought when you've got the screens, it was us and them, and it's not. We're public servants. And it's interesting you called me a service before. I still see myself as a public servant, which is really weird because I've not been one for years. But when you change the dynamics, when you listen to people, when I want to understand why Neil's angry because his gyro's late, it's actually because Neil can't, put his lecky on or his gas or buy food, and how important that money is. It's that empathy. And then with that empathy comes an insight where you can find out, well, what are you really interested in, Neil? Can we help you? What is it you need? Because actually, Neil is more productive in work. It's good for his mental health. It's good for his network. It's good for his family. It's good for everything, your self-esteem. That's what I feel employment brings. So I was there for 17 years.
17 years, wow.
17 years. And then I applied and I went into Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service.
Yeah.
I thought I was a mooner, but then I met firefighters, and did I realise that they are actual mooners. Sorry, but you are. And then I was thrown into Merseyside Fire Service, and they basically were seeking external managers to come in and change the culture.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I'll just touch on this really quickly so I can, we're on the same page. So I did a project with the New Zealand Fire Service when I lived in New Zealand, and a lot of firefighters are moaners, but they brought externals in as well to help with the culture, because you can't, difficult to change your culture, as you probably know, like with people who are in the existing culture, you need to bring. So,
no disrespect to a chief fire officer, but ultimately it was said to me by a chief fire officer, is what you've got to remember about chief fire officers. They start off as a firefighter, and they go up.
Yeah.
And there's very little. I would say the previous chief, Phil Garrigan, he did lots of external work. He was fantastic. He had a really wide view, because he was like out on secondment into city safe. He worked in partnership really well. But ultimately, you put into this world where I was managing operational fire stations. I was directly responsible for the line management of firefighters. And I also was responsible for community stuff, so reducing injury and death as a result of fire. So you were doing the operational day-to-day stuff on your stations, and then you were embedded in communities.
Education.
Yeah. And I did some amazing stuff there. I did I set up a sort of multi-agency youth engagement team that brought crime levels down across the city. So I took people from connections, I took people from drug advice agencies, people from mental health services, first aiders, pulled them into a fire service for the night of a part-time contract, deploy them where there was antisocial behaviour, and we would just be a constant presence talking to the young people about actions and consequences, where you can get help. And you might want to be taking particular drugs overnight, but is it safe? And then once that rapport was there, those agencies would refer the young people into agencies for support. I did that. I set up a project in female prisons where I sent firefighters into the female prisons, and it was around how can we protect you and your families who aren't in prison. So, have you all got smoke alarms where your children are? And the reason that I'd set that up, that I'd realised there was incidents of arson when people were getting released from prison, and it was round about the Everton area. So I thought, let's go into the prison and see if we can teach about arson in the prison.
Interesting.
And then I was in it. That was such a great project, because what I didn't realise at the time, quite harrowing, some of the women would set themselves on fire, and it was like a specialist unit, and I couldn't believe it, because I'd never come across it. It was to do with mental health, and I was really shocked as a woman, but I was shocked that I wasn't aware of it. So there was fire incidents, in the cells, and And I think that project lasted about 2 years. And I think basically, I mean, this is going back 20 years ago maybe. But basically, the rate of fire were reduced to zero.
So you could see it's fascinating, isn't it? How
it was fascinating.
What's like it's not obvious on it's not so obvious in the first instance to see, okay, how this systemically would affect like the reduction of fires by doing those other activities, but it does because it is a system. And that makes me think about you. I sort of, my sense of you is that you are a natural systems thinker. You're able to see connections and how things affect other things, because other people think linearly.
I think that's why I've been able to deliver projects.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. Like,
because I think I've always thought, like, we have so much strategy, but how does that affect this person who's in this community? If they're doing that, how do we trace it back?
That's
and
powerful.
then one of the biggest projects I did was the fire service asked me if I would develop a youth zone. So I was asked if I would work on a project which is called the Toxic Fire Fit Hub, and it was a £6 million super youth zone.
It's still there, isn't it?
Still there. And I was, that's funny, because he says, we're posting you. What that means is you're compulsory transferred. So it goes into my fire station on the Friday, and then on the Monday I was in headquarters thinking, what have I done? Have I landed here? And they set out a plan on the table, and they were like, yeah, we're going to do this. And I was like, it's a map. And they were like, no, Sarah, it's a site plan. I had no idea what it was. So I then spent time traveling the country to see youth zones that had been funded and failed, to try and find out why they failed. And then I was part of the team that procured the contractors. I then sat on a building site for 18 months while they actually sat on the building site. I used to run the community consultation, which was really difficult. There was a lot of tensions around the site politically, because youth organisations that were in existence thought that would take all their funding away. Competition. It was quite brutal.
That's quite a strong word to use. It was quite brutal.
It was brutal, getting phone calls overnight. It was men turning up to the site, get it out here. And I think one of the things for me was, actually, I live 5 minutes away. My grandparents live either side. I have got every right to be here, and I'm delivering something for my community. It's our community. It's not yours. So I was given a really rough ride. And I think what that led me to understand was, some of the community advocates that we see who shout the loudest are filled with self-interest, not with the interest of the community.
I understand.
It didn't make me popular, but that's okay, because that is the truth. So I spent 18 months on the building site. We created 27 jobs when the site opened. I deliberately created a role for young people. I employed young people from the local community who had intentionally employed young people like criminal records to give them a chance. I employed young people who particularly, maybe their education results weren't that great.
What type of roles were you recruiting?
Everything. So on the site we did labouring, plastering, electricians. Some of those young people now work in Dubai, working for big massive companies. And then when we opened youth hubs, coaches, the first year that was open, we had 100 visitors to the site, partnered with Everton Free School, delivered 1,400 qualifications in the first year. We had like world champion weightlifters mentoring young people. We run 20 different sporting activities a week. We had DJ sessions, and it was all on a shoestring, which comes back to resources.
100% resourcefulness.
It was opened. There was no money, just because we were open to the source of a lot of the funding was pools for youth services. So I went into partnership. So we worked with Everton Free School, and then we worked at Everton the Community. We worked with the LFC Foundation. They needed to engage with young people. I had fantastic facilities. You pop your coaches in here, and it worked. It was a really good partnership that way. And I was managing director there then for 2 years.
Can I ask you a question? But it's just coming up for me.
Yeah.
Because it was mentioned before. I'm conscious it might digress us a little bit, or we'll keep it on point. Is how do you build a culture from scratch in something like a hub like that? Because
Yeah.
you know, all you called it was brutal, you know, leading into it, all the challenges, then it's built. How do you see the culture so that
Yeah.
it's positive, reciprocal,
Yeah.
it's collaborative, it's supportive? Like, how do you see it, something like that
Yeah.
from scratch? But it's
Yeah.
it's difficult.
So it's a real opportunity. So we did a lot of training. So like in terms of like so we did a lot of training about like what it means to be part of the community. We also did things like everybody who worked there and the young people wrote the ground rules. We wrote ground rules of what we expected of each other and visitors.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
if you were an older young person, that meant you could be 21. You wouldn't be coming into this hub and swearing because there would be younger people there. So everyone was a role model. We got those ground rules blown up on like a 10-foot source of document.
Yeah.
And they were plastered around the building. These are ground rules written by people who come to the hub, for people who come to the hub. And they, you know, if you let people sort of manage that themselves, they do.
Because you give them trust and there's a sense of responsibility.
You give them trust. They all had responsibilities. We listened to them. We tried our best to work for them. And then when they stepped out of line, we challenged them.
How would you do that?
It would be as simple as, you know, Neil, I've just seen you there. You're just like, I don't know, you've just smashed a pool cue, whatever it is. Why did you do it? Why do you think that's okay? Well, I did it because I was angry. That's okay. You do know, though, actions have consequences. So you won't be in tomorrow night. We'll see you on Monday. Just cool off and think about what you did. Because actually, we've got to find the money to replace that.
It's quite reflective.
It's reflective. But it's also, there's education there, isn't there?
But it's a fine line because it's you know, it's dependent on the systems, the family system that these people come from. It's a fine line not to shame them and not to guilt them.
Yeah.
Because that could be quite triggering and they might disengage in some way. So it's a fine line, isn't it, in that situation? Yeah. Wow, okay.
But when you speak to people as people, like, that's not really okay, is it?
No.
It's a conversation, isn't it? Doesn't mean that you're not challenging, but it's a conversation. And also you have to employ the right people. We employed people who were youth workers. Some of them weren't traditional youth workers, as in like some of them had gone from an alternative route to like your council trained youth workers. They were all very good with young people. I think the important thing for me was every single one of them cared about young people.
Genuinely
cared about them.
They're not there because it's a job, and so it's not quite.
They genuinely cared about them. Yeah. We tried to recruit as much as possible from the local area, and then we recruited from outside the area, because the other thing is you can't be too insular.
Yeah, because I like to bring, because I'm a bit of a systems thinker as well. When you started this conversation, and you were talking about when you grew up in L8, or what was happening.
Yeah.
When you left and started working and was getting exposed to different influences, that really shaped you. And so bringing that back into what you're saying now it's important, isn't it? And like you say, bring people in from outside, because it adds a different flavour to the culture.
No, and it's so important. So I gave a talk at, this might be going off the mark, but I do think it's relevant. Gave a little bit of a talk at University of Liverpool. And I said, one thing that I don't hear spoken about anymore is, when you're in a deprived community, the societal impact of how people sometimes in that community prey on other people. So we have a system where loan sharks flourish, where criminality flourishes, and these are people's family and neighbours. And in terms of systematic and how we think, if you live in that, you don't know any different. And what happens is that's the norm. You'll always go to Neil to lend you money, or Neil will sell you whatever it is you need. That becomes the norm.
Yeah.
When you come out of that and people say, that's not okay, if you didn't work, you can just go to a bank, or things don't have to do that, or it's not right that you feel pressured to keep something in your house as a favour for someone. It's only other people views saying that some of those things aren't okay. And I love this city, and I love like I love where I've grown up. I love where I love where I live now. And I think if you love something, sometimes you have to be critical of it.
Why? That's interesting. Why?
Because you want to make it better.
Okay.
So you have to feel okay to say that's not okay that we do this to each other in deprived communities. That you're gonna say you owe me this, or I'm taking the train. That's not actually okay.
Is it difficult? You're saying critical, but it sounds to me like that's just more challenging what's there rather than being critical. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think some people do see it as a criticism though, because some people are entrenched in that way of thought.
Can become defensive.
That they jump to the defence. Well, what would you know? Well, I know plenty. Well, what would you know? Well, who are you? I mean, I always remember doing Toxic Firefist Hub, and being told that what did I know about the local community? Who was I? My family has lived there forever, and it basically, inwardly, I thought, I grew up and I've gone up from when I was 17. I've gone to work every day because my mum said you have to go out and earn your keep, girl. That's just life, right? So I wasn't necessarily around there hanging around every day. And what that was met was like, get out, who are you? And actually, that's a bit mad in itself, isn't it? Because one, I was from that community. But secondly, whatever wasn't, what does it matter? If you're there and you're doing good,
with genuine intention,
what does it matter?
Yeah.
If someone can bring something to help your lives or help the community, what does it matter?
It's a mindset, isn't it? I suppose.
It's a mindset.
And the culture again.
And it talks about when I think young people going into work as well, or being mentors, changing that mindset. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have today is young people's mindsets are being changed through their mobile phones.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
And they are not here. And some of those voices coming through the mobile phones don't have their best intentions at heart.
Like the manosphere. I won't go into specific names, but you like
yeah,
say land
100%.
Yeah.
And I think actually we still need that human connection with each other and with people. And otherwise the whole system will break down, because the misinformation that's about is in my view like making us a much more divided society. And actually what we need is we need to be united.
Well, it's amazing what you're saying, in the sense that, like, as you know, how we make sense of like life and reality is like from what we see.
Yeah.
And from what we hear.
Yeah.
And whatever information goes in shapes us, and through the phones, and like you say, that division that's there is a real thing.
Yeah,
so what
it's
do we
real.
do?
Well, I think you've just got to do something. And if that something is spending an extra, if that something is giving an hour of your time to mentor a young person, if that something is stopping to help an old person cross the road, if that something is like walking past rubbish on the floor and picking it up and popping it in the bin because someone's missed the bin, then you can do it, aren't you? We can all act with intent.
Yeah.
And I think
collectively.
And when you get that collective action, actually, you start to notice like the streets are cleaner. People are not bringing back old-fashioned values, but like my mum coming out of the estate the other day, and there's like 2 kids on the estate that carried the bags from the Asda, and I was just like, don't see that often.
No, but it's there.
It's there.
It does exist.
It's there. So it's just sort of like more of that, really. And I think more of that makes a more cohesive society.
Yeah.
Rather than shutting your front door, because I just think people are scared.
There's a lot of fear.
There's a lot of fear, and people are scared, and I think that gets worse when times are tough. And we're all in tough times, aren't we?
We're in very tough times. Like it's we've got this sense of like everything's being normal, but you can feel it.
You can feel it.
There's a lot of tension.
There's a lot of tension. People are struggling, and I think this is my personal view. When people struggle so differently economically, they look for an answer down an unusual route.
Crime.
They look to people who may say the right thing but have not got their best intentions at heart. They just want power themselves. And they also look maybe to blame somebody when realistically we're just in a tough time and things do need to change systematically, but that change will take time.
6 years.
It takes years. And I think as Rise, I told you about we invest our money, I see us as investing our profits into those intervention and prevention initiatives that over time will change those communities.
All right, I'm going to segue into something because what you're doing is social value, and because this is a social value podcast, and there'll be a lot of social value practitioners who will be listening to this and be getting inspired and be getting some ideas. So how could like a construction company who delivers social value, I'll use construction as an example because that's a lot of part of what they do when they're doing projects. What can we do within a community? Like where can, because you can see things, where can you see opportunities to deliver social value that addresses things like division?
Yeah. So Dan was speaking to a contractor.
So Dan being one of your colleagues.
Yeah, Dan's my colleague, and he said, I've just spoken to this contract. I'm really, really sorry that I can't remember the name actually. But what they've just done, and this is in Manchester, they've just basically taken over a college for like for the summer period. They've blocked it out for 2 weeks. The college are letting them use it. Got loads of young people in there teaching them, here's how you change a plug. Here's how you might want to fix a cupboard. Here's how you put a shelf up.
Practical skills.
Practical skills. Young people of all backgrounds together, problem solving, getting to know each other.
Teamwork, leadership.
But also stuff that when they go and live on their own, I mean, like young people, I know so many young people, I'm not even going to say that, I've got people my own age can't change a plug. I know lads who can't change a plug, but I can change a plug.
The thing is though, like it's in some respects, like you weren't taught that in school.
No.
And then if you're coming from a family where maybe there was an absent father or there was certain people who weren't around that didn't have those skills, you wouldn't get taught. But then you get to a certain age, you're going out and use those.
Yeah. I mean, that's just brilliant, isn't it? Practical skills, life skills, bringing people together. Obviously,
it's amazing.
The college is sitting empty.
So it's an asset that can be utilised.
It's an asset, it's a resource. So what you've got there is you've got a public sector organisation, partner with a private sector organisation, doing something really practical and driving social value.
Lovely.
Honestly, it's
that simple though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's simple. I mean, you see stuff, you see other stuff which I find bizarre, really. So, like, come across things. So the social value landscape is really loud at the moment.
What's that mean?
There's a lot of white noise, and within that, like everything, you get some like maybe not correct information.
What, can you tell me a little bit more what you mean by that?
Yeah. So I remember having a conversation taking place that, I'm Sarah and I'm a builder. You're Neil and you're a charity, and I've just won a contract to paint the walls of Farm Urban. And because I'm going to paint these walls, and because Farm Urban does great stuff, I'm delivering social value. Well, I'm not. I'm getting paid to paint a wall.
Yeah.
So what you have is there's quite a lot of social value ESG consultants out there at the moment, quite a lot of them, and they'll come and chat to us saying like, we can help you with social value, because they've not even looked at what we do. So they'll come and say, we can help you, and we're quite specific in what we do. We sort of know what we do. And then they'll say, yeah, all these contracts, just because you're doing them, you're delivering loads of social values. And like, we get paid to do it. We get paid to run a framework. It's a contractor's activity.
Yeah.
So like everything, you have to sort of weed out like the white noise. And
because it's like my perception of it, because the reason why I'm here at Farm Urban as an innovation consultant and leading on some of the innovation activities was looking at social value, and it just feels like it's very it's evolving, but there is a lot of white noise, and it's hard to like really pinpoint. Some people who are genuine, some people who are not, but there's also a lack of resource, I find, where you've got some of these companies who are delivering social value, but like you speak to a social value manager and I was like, Neil, I haven't really got any money to do anything.
Yeah, so that's where social value becomes a PR exercise, and that's where it fails. So where organisations are using social value only if they're going to get a contract out of it, or only if they're going to make, do something for the art profile. And I sort of look at with charitable activity. Charitable activity isn't social value neither. If you're doing something for a charity, you are doing a charitable activity. That might be part of your CSR.
Like a donation or going to help them out with some manpower or whatever, volunteering days or
Okay. So like, you see, I think you see more and more people using social value as a PR and marketing exercise. And what happens is that, to me, undervalues the whole movement
of social value.
Yeah.
So how should it be done? I mean, and obviously you can argue that you're doing it in purest form, but what does that look like in?
Well, I just think that you need to go, what do you want to do with your social value? So we're very clear in what we want to do. We want to like help tackle poverty and deprivation. So you could just pick something. You could focus on something to do with young people, something to do with old people. It could be isolation. It doesn't really matter. You know what you want to do in a community. What are the problems facing the community, and how can you impact that? So for us, it's quite easy. We invest our money in the experts who will go in and deliver in that community.
Yeah.
It's quite simple.
Yeah.
Because I also think if you're a builder, contractor, you are exceptional at building. I think contractors are also really good at the employability and skills. They'll do CV sessions, they go into schools, they'll do talks. That's really, really good. You're good at that. But if you really want to go into the heart of the community, sometimes you have to look outside your own organisations and work with a partner organisation who can deliver that.
And pay, and well, that's essentially what we do. That's what we do. So like, I won't go into it, but like that's stay with the flow of the conversation. That's what organisations will have a specific objective, and they'll pay us to go and deliver it for them.
And you pay for that service. And everybody has to make profit. There's commerciality, and I think one of the things about social value, when I first started hearing it, was like, oh, social value, it doesn't cost anything. It does cost something, even if it's for paying you to deliver something, or even if it's Neil is gonna do something like create these in a school as part of Farm Urban Social Value. You still got to put your time into it.
Yeah, and there's a cost on the balance. Yeah.
There's a cost. So social value does cost, but I think with social value is, and what I do love about the new Procurement Act, is that when you're procuring, you should consider the wider benefit for communities. And that for me is absolutely right. It shouldn't be corporate led, it should be community led. I don't think we have enough people who work in public sector organisations who understand it and who champion it. I meet with lots of capital estates people who are great, and I meet with some who basically just like, listen, love, how much is it going to cost to move that light fixture? And I feel bitterly disappointed, and I also feel angry because they are public servants and it's taxpayers' money and they should be interested.
Yeah. Not all public servants are created equally though, are they?
No, and I suppose that's my little soapbox.
There's a woman called Lucy Bridge who I interviewed on the last podcast. She's a bit different.
Yeah, Lucy's great, isn't she?
Yeah.
But it is, isn't it? It's about it should be from the community, and I know that there's a lack of resources and it's difficult times, but you have to find ways of doing it.
Okay, so that we're nearly coming to an end now, so I want to capture this as important. So when you're saying community led, so if we think about, say, Liverpool or a Manchester or a Leeds, or like I'm in conversations with a construction company now down in Essex around some stuff there. Like when something's community led, and if you're like a company who's got to deliver social value, what would make it easier for someone who is an organisation who you are a social value manager? How can you engage with that, and what could a local authority do or a local organisation can do collaboratively to highlight, okay, this is who we are as a community or an area, this is what we need, and how can that be brokered with like an organisation? Because that's where there's a bit of a gap there, as I'm seeing as well, where how can that be brokered more effectively? So it's a collaborative effort rather than like, okay, we're coming into an area, what needs to be done, we can do this, we're just going to do this. Do you know what I mean?
I think I'm correct in saying Stockport have a model.
Okay.
So Stockport have a model where they've got all of the charities on a software system.
Yeah.
And what those charities need and what they do in communities.
Specifically social value?
What they need, what they deliver in communities. You come in, you get any type of contract, construction, IT, your social value manager goes on the database and you are matched with an organisation and a project.
That's the way. See, it's interesting because when we're in Farm Urban, we come up with that idea independently. I'm sure it's not just us that have come up with that idea, so it's great to see that being done. So Stockport, so is that being driven by the local authority?
Yeah, the local authority.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
And I'm sure there'll be other good examples out there, but that's just one that sprung to mind because, you know, we've come across it. And I think there is something about private, public and third sector relationships. As a framework, as RISE, we work across all three.
Yeah.
And when you get them together in the same room, you make really powerful change. Powerful change. Just talking about all the assets that are empty. Third sector organisations could go into an empty building and deliver a diversionary activity. They could do, you know, they could do pop-up workshops.
Yeah.
They could bring young people together and do pop-up workshops around the health and well-being, around the use of, I mean, a big one coming up in society, isn't it, about the use of ketamine?
Huge ketamine problem.
Right. Why are we not talking about it?
It's everywhere.
Why are we not talking about it? Which leads back into, is it too hard? Is it just need to think a little bit differently? Empty buildings, we've got specialists, pop it up somewhere trendy, do something different, have those conversations about it.
Starts with a conversation.
Yeah.
Can't change what you can't see.
No.
Bring that into awareness. There's two things that I want to finish off with. One is the King's Leadership Award. So share about like how that came about. And to finish off, I'd love you to talk about this amazing conference that you've got coming up.
Yeah.
And just to sort of share with people like what it is, because there might be people outside the city region that might want to come in. So let's just start with the King's Leadership Award.
Yeah, so we won the King's Award for enterprise.
Just for enterprise.
For promoting opportunity through social mobility. So we were in the Northwest. It was just us and Timpson's that picked up that award. There was only 8 promoting social mobility awards in the country awarded. I think this year there was none in our city region. And it was a whole process of what we do in terms of social mobility. So obviously we're a private company that does all this good work, but particularly for social mobility, we have Thrive. So as an organisation that sets up Thrive and deliver it, I think that is not our day-to-day business. So all the work we do at Thrive, Dan and I, and Marion is the director and Jackie is the director, we volunteer. So we literally do that as something that we volunteer and that we've created. So in terms of the King's Award for promoting opportunity, it's what do you do for social mobility that isn't part of your day job. So it's not, for example, if you're just employing apprentices to work in your organisation. It's not if you're employing a graduate. It's what do you do outside of your day-to-day that, you know, creates these opportunities. And at the time, there was only 3 of us in the team, and I was thinking, we're never going to get this. And they were saying, no, it's for organisations of all sizes. And we did, and we won it. So we get to have the King's sort of logo for 5 years. But it also means they do everything. They go through your taxes. It's full due diligence. They go through what you do, how you do it. So it really is a stamp of approval.
A lot of rigour.
Yeah, honestly. And you were at the event, weren't you?
Yeah.
So you go meet the King. That's lovely. But then the Lord Lieutenant comes and you get to invite your family, friends, colleagues. And it was that point that it dawned on me how serious it was. Because they started reading like by the order of the realm. Yeah. And I was sitting there thinking, this is really heavy. This is really, really serious. And then I could hear my sister crying behind me. She cries at anything. She was like, and I was just thinking, this is wild. And I also think, you know, anybody can do it.
So just to finish off then, you've got this exciting conference that's coming up.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and just share like what it's about. It's touching on obviously, well, in a big way, social mobility. But sort of share like when it is, like what it's about, and then how people can maybe get involved and attend on the day. So yeah, it'd be lovely to hear more about that.
So obviously we have Thrive. which will be 5 years old in October.
Wow.
So we wanted to mark the occasion by doing just a bit of a small event, and then that quickly grew arms and legs. So we've now launched Raise Up, which is a social mobility and youth summit. We found that young people were telling us, and it's also sort of reflected nationally, that they're really struggling in terms of work experience, mentors, just understanding what's out there in terms of roles. There's a lot of young people who are suffering from a lack of confidence and anxiety and just need to understand things a bit more. There's almost 1 million NEETs, Gen Z's a NEET. So we thought, well, what can we do?
What's a NEET, just for people who might
So
not know?
So it's like not in education, employment, training. So they're basically, they've got not, they're not doing anything productive. And that could be because they don't know how to, they don't know what they want to do, they're unsure. There's a million reasons why that happens. But we wanted to do something really different. So we curated an event, which for the morning is for local employers, and we would love to get 300, 400 employers at Box Park, Liverpool. And we curated a morning which will say Channel 4 coming and speaking about some research they did on Gen Z, which is really interesting, eye-watering, and it's got some really interesting details, because who are these young people? Who's speaking to them? How do they know how what they think, what they feel? We've got an expert social mobility panel. We've got the Government Social Mobility Commission, the Social Mobility Foundation, Sir Andy Hook, really meaty panel to talk about the impact of social mobility to society and to business. We've got special guest speaker, and then we're going to be announcing a new initiative across Liverpool with UK charity Movement to Work, and that's all around supporting young people with work experience opportunities.
Awesome, wow.
It gets exciting though when we go to lunch, because when we go to lunch, we're going to fold in 300 Gen Zs into the conversation.
From the Liverpool City region?
Liverpool City region. And they're going to be there, and we're going to do some careers highlights on the stage. We're going to have an entrepreneurs panel. We're going to have a great keynote speaker who's like a national figure, and then we're going to end up with a sports panel. So what we're going to be showing young people is lifting aspirations. Everybody's, for example, on the Liverpool sort of entrepreneurs panel, they sound like us. You can do it, you work hard, from all different backgrounds, a wide range of careers. And I think what was important to me was getting young people with employers in the room and just having a conversation. Employers aren't scary, young people aren't scary. And also, I do get concerned about the young people who come to us who solely get their information from social media. And we really wanted to connect young people with real employers and have those conversations in an environment where they can ask anything. They can ask, well, what will the wage be? Or, well, what do we need? We've done similar sessions where we've had the Merseyside Policing, for example, and a group of young people chatting to them. I've got a criminal record, can I still work for the police? Just those really open conversations. Also understanding what's there. You can work in a hospital, you don't have to be a doctor. They have social media, they have accountants, they have buyers, they have drivers, they have cleaners. So it's understanding what's out there. And we really want to sort of paint a hopeful picture, because it is a hopeful picture. There are things that, people can do and opportunities. But we really want the Liverpool City region employers to rally around the event. As a city and as a region, we're so good at rallying around things, aren't we? You've seen the fantastic work around Zoe's place. But actually, we need us all to rally around these young people. They need a bit of hope. I know it's a cliche, we're the adults in the room. Let's give them the hope. So buy a ticket for the event. It's the 15th of October.
15th of October.
Yeah, it's in Box Park. It's called Raise Up. Each ticket you buy pays for a ticket for a young person. You're going to, as an employer, you're going to get some really interesting information. Because the important thing is, Gen Z are your current and future workforce.
100%.
Without Gen Z, what does that mean for your business? So it's tying them both together and finishing towards the end of the year on a high for young people, creating opportunities, and on a high for employers, and seeing the city region come together.
But again, it's you all over, thinking about the system and all the different aspects of the system and bring them all together in the space.
Really trying to pull it all together in one space. Yeah, I mean, some people think I'm a bit mad, but I suppose it's just when you come back to innovation, I never see myself as an innovator. I see myself as somebody who has lots of sort of things going on and think, well, actually, it's a societal issue. Is there something we can do to help that? And maybe that's a problem solver. I don't know what it is.
There's different words. I mean, I perceive that it's innovation, entrepreneurship, and it's an ability to be able to see a problem and have the resources and the capability and the connections to be able to bring something new and novel into existence that solves a problem, whether it be a product, a service, an event, and really pushing things. Because there's one thing in life, as you know, everything's changing all the time. And we've got to stay on top of it. And there's a million Gen Z men and women, boys and girls who are falling through the cracks that are going to be the future.
And honestly, we see so much like low-level anxiety, and some of the young people just need a face-to-face conversation, particularly with young people furthest from the job market who might have like multi-generational unemployment within the household. Who do you see going to work? Who speaks to you about work? If you're in a community where that could be 2 whole streets, you're not exposed to anything. So we want this day to really light a fire, and let that fire be like just like a flame of aspiration, really.
Amazing. Wow. What a conversation. It's rich. I was just feeling like what people don't realize on this podcast is that there was a fire alarm about 10 minutes ago, so we had to pause the conversation. But like when we went outside, so like there was about 1 million questions more that I wanted to ask, because there's so many different things and richness to what we're talking about. I'll share the link about the event when I post out the podcast. But if there's one thing that anyone listening to this podcast or watching this podcast could take away that would be practical on all the things that you talked about, and put you on the spot again, what could that be, Sarah?
I think if you see something and you think you can make a positive change, the one thing you can take away is, I just think you've got to be brave enough to try it. And it all comes down, isn't it, to being brave enough to try something. And if it doesn't work, you've tried, because you'll still always learn something. And I think if everybody just tried and a couple of things take off, then collectively it makes real change. You just got to be authentic about it.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thanks.
So Thank you.
Thanks for asking me.
I'll see you again.
Neil.
Thank you, Sarah.
Lovely to speak to you.